Hey everybody, it's Dude Leos here, and we're here to talk about different types of bloom for video games. And this is going to be very important if you're making a game or you're modding a game to understand different types of bloom for different weapons. So let's get into it. Bloom is when your shots lose accuracy as they're fired and gain accuracy when they are not. With, of course, minimum and maximum spread. Spread being how inaccurate your shots are. Bloom dates back to Doom, where shots on the pistol and chain gun would have pinpoint accuracy if fire wasn't held down to fire the next shots right away. But it wasn't until I played Halo till I really got the idea of how bloom affects gameplay. The assault rifle in Halo Combat Evolved is the most punishing for holding down the trigger than any weapon from the other games. Random spread in any form may not be good for the kind of game you're trying to create, so take that into consideration. Randomness can be frustrating for players who prefer consistency, such as competitive players. Spread also won't really encourage bursting shots like most people think it does. There is actually no hypothetical situation where bursting kills faster than holding down the trigger. This is a fact in gameplay. No matter how much you try to discourage bursting, it's always going to be the non-optimal to do in competitive situations. This means that fights are most likely going to be determined by randomness or RNG. This may not be good for your game. It is also something to consider that spread affects gameplay minimally. Players who fire in bursts are more likely to get the most damage per shots and conserve the most ammo, but it will come at the expense of kill time in almost all situations. The difference between bursting and not doing so are insignificant and shouldn't be a determining factor in the skill of the game. It should be taken with a grain of salt if done, and should be done for the sake of creating more interesting gameplay rather than for skill-based or competitive reasons. This is where it fails. Take into consideration that increasing spread will actually make it easier to hit targets that are not entirely under the center of your screen when implementing it. Fire rate being bloom dependent is an interesting way of going about bloom. I personally do not go this way very much. It is a pet peeve of mine that a weapon is losing more or less ammunition in the same period of time as the trigger is held. Halo CE does speeding up shots for bloom on the plasma rifle and Warthog turret gun. On the turret, which has unlimited ammunition, the gun fires faster as the trigger is held, potentially compensating for shots missed with the increased spread by covering the area with more shots in a shorter time. This is a good way of going about suppressive weapon with unlimited ammunition and no reload. When we get into other forms of weapons, however, this formula falls short when creating suppressive style weapons with limited ammunition and reload times. Try creating the weapon with inverted bloom. This means shots are increased in accuracy as the weapon is fired. I personally like making the weapon fire slower and do more damage per shot so the clip or magazine lasts longer. This is the case with Gears of War 5's Claw, which does tons of damage and gains accuracy as it is shot. This allows opponents to be warned with the sound of gunfire without being immediately subject to instantaneous death at a distance. But if they expose themselves while the shooter is firing, they are most likely to die, fulfilling the role of a suppressive style weapon. In my game, which you are seeing here, the weapon fires slowly and gains more accuracy for every shot fired. This accomplishes the same goal as the Claw, but more effectively as the shots have more initial spread and there is a bigger difference between accuracy when shooting versus when not. There are also other forms of bloom I want to talk about. In one of my games, the assault rifle, as it is known as for the moment, has a faster shot recovery on its first shot at max accuracy, making the first two shots at max accuracy quicker. The weapon also gains accuracy to medium spread after firing a few shots at max spread. This means that the weapon has the potential to be used for suppressive fire at medium distance for a short period as it stabilizes. Recoil is also affected by this, as the weapon has more recoil the longer it has been firing. This is a clever way to encourage players to think of using the weapon in different ways as opposed to simply running up close as you shoot, which traditional bloom encourages. I would also like to make a special mention of the pistol in one of my games. This weapon starts at mid-accuracy and spread, and gains accuracy and recoil as it fires. Pulling the trigger as fast as you can increases the spread. However, you may notice that when I fire, there is a moment where the spread bounces per se towards the middle before closing at mid-accuracy. If I time my shots correctly, I can shoot at the moment where the spread is tighter and the weapon gains accuracy if I pace it in this regard. This is a mechanic I use for light weapons, as the accuracy for lighter weapons is determined by the ability to hit a target using QK or quick kill technique, which relies on the shooter's ability to recover from a miss of a shot to correct their aim based on the shot. Bursting for SMGs and trigger tapping for pistols is a good way to use this mechanic. When implementing bloom, consider the recoil for the weapon. A weapon may get more spread when fired, but perhaps it has less recoil. This makes the weapon more interesting than just quote-unquote don't shoot too much, as the person has to consider what position they are in and make a decision accordingly. Something I'd want to mention here is Halo SPV. I have not played this mod, but I immediately detested the bloom they used for the assault rifle. Like most weapons in Halo, the shots get less accurate and faster when shot. The logic behind this is that it makes the weapon more satisfying to use according to the developer. This is not good, as it ignores the principles of orthogonal unit differentiation, as it puts it on par with the other weapons ignoring the principle. Orthogonal unit differentiation, by the way, basically means that things should be differentiated to offer interesting options and conundrums within gameplay. One of the most interesting things about any game to me personally is how a game can offer an interesting dilemma. The dilemma is not real, it is merely perceived, but perceiving it makes the game more interesting. To make a dilemma, put the player in a position where they need to do or accomplish something, then have the ability to accomplish it more difficult as it is being pursued. For example, in one of my games, certain enemies won't attack if you're up close, but they attack more aggressively with more dangerous weaponry the closer you get up to that point. This is the dilemma. These dilemmas are necessary for making games seem more intelligent, like puzzles, rather than the usual mindlessness of shooting, as it forces the player to think about how to resolve the dilemma. The dilemma of blooming weapons that make shooting feel more intelligent and puzzling is the fact that it offers the dilemma of needing to shoot someone and kill them fast, but the shots will get less accurate as I shoot, so I can't do so. The solution may be as simple as getting close, firing in bursts and such, but it's the presence of the catch that makes the game more intelligent and interesting. So the idea with an interesting bloom mechanic is that it looks for ways to create interesting shooting dilemmas. The more dilemmas without creating complicated gameplay, the more interesting the circumstances arise. In games like Halo with weapons like the assault rifle, there is only one dilemma. As we fire the weapon, it gets more inaccurate. The dilemma is only a problem until we solve it. Once we know to throw grenades and close into our targets as we shoot, or otherwise shoot in bursts or spray for weaker targets, it doesn't seem that much puzzling anymore, because we've solved it. To keep dilemmas interesting, the different weapons must pose new and contradictory dilemmas to other weapons, so that players cannot get used to playing a certain way in order to use all of the weapons. This isn't the perfect solution, but it is a solution. Thanks for watching my video. Like and subscribe for more content. Well, see you later.